So Outriders endgame is going to keep you busy for a very long time, and there's going to be a ton of legendary armors and weapons for you to farm in the full game. And thanks to a recent data mine, we have a lot more of these legendary items to go over, including legendary armor sets that look really awesome and have powerful effects, as well as really cool weapons that we have yet to see even in the demo. So let's jump right into it with all the details, and as always, if you enjoyed this at any point, it would be super awesome if you also left a like on it. So I already said that the end game is going to be everything. Well, here is going to be another glimpse of it. As you may or may not know, the 10 or so legendaries that we got in the beta don't even begin to cover the ones that are still left in the game. And thanks to quirky service 2626 over on Reddit, we have at least a few dozen more weapons and armor sets to look over that are simply amazing in my opinion. So I do want to start things off with a few that I found to be extremely interesting, like this really awesome Death Shield legendary automatic shotgun that I think is going to be a perfect fit, especially for the Devastator, but it could work pretty well for any tanky kind of build with other classes as well. And that is because it comes with a tier 3 perk called Fortress that is going to increase your damage bonus by 43% based on your existing armor. So essentially, the more armor you stack, the more bonus damage you receive with all other abilities and weapons, and this is like the perfect combination for you if you also want to have survivability but also really high damage. It also helps that you get a tier 2 Striga with a 30% of the critical damage being returned to you as healing, which, I mean, come on, this is gonna let you sustain your character for a very long time in combat. Now, we saw one really awesome side weapon in the game with the form of Torment and Agony, but there's actually way better ones in the full game, and one of them is going to be the Disintegrator legendary revolver that comes in with two really cool mods. Well, one of them is actually super OP, so Strings of Gauss is what it's called. Shots link up to 5 enemies in a 5-meter radius of the target and deal over 88,000 electric damage to each of them, and check this out, with only a 2-second cooldown. And then there's also the Soul Devourer tier 1 mod that makes killing shots to regenerate 8,000 HP. Now at max level, that HP healing might not be that great, but you're kind of like killing a ton of enemies at the same time, with those 5 of them being linked between one another. By the way, if you liked Borderlands, and especially so if you liked Jacob's weapons that were doing like a ton of ricochet with the bullets and whatnot, well, we have an equivalent of that in Outriders as well, and it comes in the form of the Lucky Revolver. So the Pinball tier 3 mod is going to give every critical shot ricochet up to 4 enemies within a 5-meter radius, dealing weapon double base damage. So that is actually pretty much Jacob's Revolver right here. And then there's also the improved Toxic Bullets that yeah, basically makes all shots to inflict toxic on enemies as well, with a 4-second cooldown. But of course, if you were to use crafting, you could maybe replace it with something else, maybe to freeze everybody, or maybe to apply a ton of explosions or a ton of burning effects against multiple enemies at the same time. You have the option with that. Now, I will cover another one that we saw in some of the gameplay footage in the trailers and whatnot. So Roaring Umbra, we saw it at one point on one of these Devastators, really awesome legendary line machine gun, and we finally have the mods on that. So Kinetic Stomp tier 3 mod makes your shots to create a seismic shock around you, dealing 41,000 damage in a 5-meter radius with a 3-second cooldown. And then there's the Bleeding Bullets that apply bleed every 8 seconds or so. By the way, speaking of bleed, let's also take a look at the Fatal Symbiote, which is a submachine gun that takes away about 50% of your maximum HP in exchange for 75% weapon damage bonus. It also inflicts bleeding on hits, but you could replace it with something else, and this seems to be the perfect fit for any character or build that has really high HP numbers, so you can sacrifice some of that and deal some really huge damage. And just take a look at the firepower on this thing right here, 1,300,000 damage right there, which is absolutely insane. I mean, this is the type of number that you're going to see at the maximum level, which is like way higher than the ones that we saw on the previous weapons. So some really cool stuff. And now there's another one called Inferno Seed that I really like this assault rifle right here. Comes with the Wrath of Moloch, and this makes your critical hits to cause an explosion, dealing over 200k damage and inflicting burn on enemies within a 5-meter radius with only a 3-second cooldown. And then there's also the Brain Eater, which makes your critical shots to not consume any ammo, and there's only like 100k damage with this one on the firepower. So again, really big differences right there. There's many more weapons in the game that I'm gonna go over. Another one that we saw in some of the trailers was the Anomaly Effigy. I think that we also saw this on a Devastator at some point. So Concentration Blast makes killing shots to cause enemies to explode, dealing 220,000 damage, multiplied by the maximum number of enemies within a 5-meter radius around the original target. So if you shoot an enemy in a big group, it's going to explode, and the more enemies around it, it's going to explode for an even higher number, which in theory should help you clear them up even faster. And then there's also the Weakening Bullets, which makes you inflict weakness with each shot. So again, it is gonna be a really amazing weapon. Again, if you want to check these out, they're going to be in the links down below, or you can just go ahead and check them on Reddit. There's some really amazing ones in the mix. Like right now, there's about 20 or so that have been further data mined, and they're really awesome. But with that out of the way, let's talk about some really awesome armor sets. This has been a pretty big topic of discussion because people in the demo were fearing that some of the end game armor sets would not look cool. Let me put all of that to rest, because we have 3 more armor sets that we have never seen before that look really amazing, and I'm gonna start things off with the Trickster's own Edge of Time armor set, which comes in with a really interesting 3-piece bonus on top of the mods. So as you may or may not know, legendary armors in Outriders also come with set bonuses. You only need 3 pieces to complete that bonus, which means that you have the liberty to attach 2 other different armor pieces outside of that set and still get the bonuses. In this case, the Edge of Time increases both your damage with the Temporal Blade and the Cycle and Slice, with of course that armor set right there, both of which by the way are really amazing abilities. I cannot wait to show you the Cyclone Slice when it actually gets released, like the footage and all of that, and when we get the clearance. I cannot wait to show it to you. It's like a really awesome spin that deals a ton of damage against big groups of enemies. But just going over the armor pieces that I found to be more important and more powerful, going over the upper armor chest, we have the Rebound, which makes it so that during the Cycle and Slice, when it's active, you will reflect 50% of all incoming bullets back into the enemies, kinda like how the Devastator does it. And then you also have the Wind Slash, which makes your Cycle and Slice to increase your skill damage by 21,000 in this case. And there's also the Pants, by the way, ultimate duration. It's again amazing for the Cycle and Slice, adds another 10 seconds to the duration of that ability. And then there's also the Strong Slice, increases the skill's damage by another 69,000. So that's like almost 100k just from these 2 pieces alone. But it's not just pure damage, by the way, it also gives you some really nice defenses on those feet. So for example, the tier 3 mod on those is going to boost your armor by 75% for each affected enemy, and is going to stack up to 8 times and last up to 10 seconds. Now another really awesome armor set that I think will work really amazing with the bleed build that I'm planning for my Devastator is the Seismic Commander, which comes with a set bonus that increases damage towards enemies with bleed effects on them by 150%. So that is pretty insane. So the Ultimate Impaler is going to be one of the mods on the headgear that makes the skill to be activated 2 more times before triggering the cooldown, essentially giving you 2 charges of that build. And then the second one, Earthquake, is going to now inflict bleed on enemies so that you can always apply it on enemies and have it guaranteed chance to happen. There's also the Pulsage, which makes your Impale to strike additional 2 targets. We saw some of this in the Devastator breakdown video, where you could increase the number of impales up to like even 5 enemies or more, and even have multiple charges of these between all of these armor sets. And yeah, we also have like the lower armor with the legs and whatnot, which comes with the rivers of blood, further increasing your skill damage by another 50% against enemies that are bleeding. And there's a few more like the second earthquake, which lets you activate another earthquake before triggering a cooldown. And then yeah, that's pretty much it with all of this armor set. Now the last one is going to be for the Technomancer. We also have a set for that. It's called the Plague Sowers, and it comes in with a really interesting set bonus. Upon applying a toxic status, you gain 5% damage reduction for 5 seconds, and it stacks up to 5 times, up to a 25% damage reduction. So yes, it's totally possible to become a tank with other classes as well. Or well, in this case, also be a little bit more tanky, because this set right here provides some really awesome damage boosts as well, like the tier 3 splash boost bonus on the headgear that provides additional like splash effect radius of successful shots by up to 50%, which can be really useful. There's also the tier 3 mod to the bone. Blighted rounds, when the skill is activated, increases anomaly power by 30% for 15 seconds. So anomaly power, if you make a build like this, is going to boost basically your spell damage, as in all of your abilities, the active ones that you have on your activity bar. There's also the mad burst. So blighted turret, the turret replenishes 35% of your maximum health, and is going to do that to each of the ally within a 6-meter radius around itself when it is going to be destroyed. So you also have a bit of support in there as well. There's also power assimilation, another tier 3, this time around universal mod, which boosts your anomaly power by 157,000 for each of the elites present on the battlefield. And then finally the boots, enriched anti-thrax. Blighted turrets increase your turret's damage by 7,976, and there's of course the other tier ones in there too, but you probably already know a few of these too. So yeah, some really awesome mods and weapons right here that we haven't seen before. Of course, I didn't even cover like the cannonball set, another one for the Devastator, which comes in with some really nice bonuses to melee damage. So in this case, the bonus would be that your melee skills would replenish ammunition for your current magazine. So it could be a really nice combo to go in and jump in against the enemies, do a slam in the ground, and then you would get that ammo back without needing to reload any of your current weapons. Again, these are just part of the items that you will find in the game. There's gonna be probably many more. This doesn't even begin to cover the other armor sets of legendary quality, and there's also some really awesome epic ones that I've seen in the game. But for now, I think that this is plenty enough for you to see and to expect from Outriders endgame, and what you're gonna be able to do once you reach that point. I think that there's a ton of stuff for you to do in the end game of Outriders, and a ton of stuff to farm and create some really interesting builds with all of the 4 classes. This is it for now. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.